اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh for another week of the guided, dear respected viewers. Today our topic is based around the holy month of Ramadan, inshallah, which shall begin towards the end of this week, inshallah. Inshallah, we'll be giving you more details about that towards the end of the show. Many interesting questions today with our guest speaker, Sheikh Nami Farhat. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Today, our topics will be based around the holy month of Ramadan and a lot of technical questions related to the holy month. Questions that a lot of people may know the answer to and or questions that people may not know the answer to. So inshallah, keep tuned with us. It will be slightly longer than usual, the show. There is a lot of questions to get through, but inshallah you can hold patient with us. So I will pass it on to Sheikh Nami Farhat, our guest speaker, to give you a introduction to the holy month of Ramadan, and then inshallah we will start answering our questions for tonight from there. Sheikhna.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation and congratulate you for the new show. Inshallah, it can be a path of guidance to people to the straight path. When it comes to the month of Ramadan, it is considered one of the divine journeys that Allah Subhana wa ta'ala blesses us with throughout the year. Allah Azza wa Jal, He gives us 4 opportunities or 4 journeys to go through in our year. And each one of them is an introduction to the second one. In order for you to benefit from the second journey, you must work on the first one. And in order for you to benefit from the third, the fourth, you must work on the first 3. The first journey is Rajab, the month of Rajab. In Rajab, every night in the dua, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from hellfire. حرم شيبتي على النار. In order to be protected from hellfire, you need to search for the ark of salvation, and you need to find the straight path. If someone is on the straight path, they will be protected from hell. In order to reach the straight path, you need to walk through a certain avenue or a certain journey. And in this journey, you'll find some lands that are uncultivated, which you need to cultivate, which you need to clean. And this is the purpose of Rajab, to clean your soul, to remove all dirt, and to prepare the land. In ilm al-akhlaq, they call this at-takhalli, where you clean or you purify your soul. Then you go to the next journey, which is Shaban. In Shaban, you come and you throw the seeds of your actions in this ground. And you pray every night in Shaban to make you from among those who reach Ramadan. You take care of this land after cleaning it. You throw the seeds and you watch carefully until you reach the third journey, which is the month of Ramadan. For the seed to succeed in removing the dirt from around it and to rebel against the soil to come out, you need to have the correct introductions to properly uncultivate the ground in Rajab and to properly take care of the land in Shaban. So if you want to benefit from the month of Ramadan, you need to work on yourself from Rajab. You don't wake up suddenly in the first day of the month and expect to benefit from this month if you didn't prepare from Rajab and Shaban. And what's interesting in the month of Ramadan, that every night when we perform the dua al-iftitah, we recite the following. We say, Allahumma aktubni min hujjaji baytika al-haram fi aami hadha wa fi kulli aam. Make me from among those who perform the Hajj this year and in every year. This shows that the journey towards Allah is unlimited. Same as perfection is unlimited, our journey is unlimited. So it doesn't stop in Ramadan. Shahr Ramadan is also an introduction to the journey that you perform in Hajj. And these are the 4 journeys that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with in the month of Ramadan. When we approach this month, usually the first thing that comes to our mind is the khutbah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. This khutbah, every sentence in it is special, but there's a sentence that needs hours and hours of reflection and hours of lectures. Obviously, I'm not going to speak long about it. Just as a summary, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, "Huwa shahrun du'itum fihi ila diyafatillah." It is a month that you have been invited to be in the hospitality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means that there's an invitation that is going to be sent to every one of us at the beginning of this month. Who is inviting? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this in itself needs hours of reflection. Allah, the creator, the owner, the one who doesn't need anything, is sending an invitation to me. Someone who is full of ignorance, someone who is full of weakness, someone who lives in the darkness of his sins, in his mistakes. And with that, Allah is giving me a way or an avenue to remove me from this darkness in order to see His divine light and to join Him in this journey. This reflects the divine love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards His servants. And it should make us work or struggle in order to please Allah. If someone invites you in this life to go through a journey with them, you would be happy because they remembered you, they care about you. You try to change yourself, to search what pleases them, to know how to speak in front of them, to dress properly, you put on the best clothes, you take care of your physical appearance. Do we do the same thing when we approach this journey with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are we careful in the way that we speak during this journey? Do we dress properly based on what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? Do we try to balance between reflecting on the spirituality of this month and learning the rulings of fasting before we start? These are some of the questions that we should ask ourselves before we enter to this divine journey with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ahsantum, Sheikh.
Ahsanallah.
Beautiful introduction and the way that you've put it together for us. So as we said, Sheikh, inshallah, we do have a series of questions for you tonight. So we'll pretty much get straight into it so that we have enough time, inshallah, to get through all the questions. Please, viewers, before we get into that, please like and share the page just so that we can spread the message further and wider. As you can see, alhamdulillah, we have been posting videos week in, week out, and inshallah it will continue to be as such, inshallah, for as long as we live, hopefully. So we only want to get bigger and better, so we need your help in spreading our message towards the people, and it's just as simple as you liking the page and just spreading the message, sharing it on Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever you can do to help us get the message across, inshallah. Sheikh Nazar, we'll start off with the first question for tonight. As we mentioned, Shahr Ramadan, inshallah, is around the corner. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity to be amongst those that fast this Shahr Ramadan and every Shahr Ramadan. Very important question which begins something that a lot of people would want to know for the holy month of Ramadan is, how do we make the intention for fasting? Is there something that needs to specifically be said? Is it something you can just think about in your mind? Can you shed a bit of light for us on the matter?
Inshallah. Every action or obligation needs an intention, and it's based on the intention that you have before you perform it. So fasting is the same as the rest of the obligations in religion. It needs an intention. The scholars, our maraja, they say that this intention doesn't have to be said verbally. So you don't have to recite verbally that I'm going to fast the month of Ramadan, wajiban qurbatan lillahi ta'ala. And also you don't have to repeat it in your heart. So you don't say it verbally, and also you don't need to repeat it by silence, in silent, in your heart, that I'm going to fast the month of Ramadan. The intention is to be aware of what you are going to do. To have in your mind that the month of Ramadan is approaching, it is wajib for me to fast, it's wajib to refrain from certain things, the 10 things that you should stay away from during the day. And you have in your mind that you're going to perform this fast, qurbatan lillahi ta'ala, wajiban qurbatan lillahi ta'ala. You don't have to say it. As long as it's in your mind and you're conscious about what you're doing, that is enough as an intention.
Ahsantum, Sheikh.
Ahsanallah ilayk.
Next question, Sheikh. This intention that you've just answered the question about, so what is the timing for making this intention? Is there such thing as too late?
The timing to do it is before the time of Fajr.
Okay.
This is, so the first night before the month of Ramadan, the first night of the month of Ramadan, you'll start the first day, the next day, because we start with the night. This night, before the time of Fajr, you do the intention, okay? As a precaution, they say, at the time of Imsak, so 5-10 minutes before the time of Salatul Subh,
Yep.
you do the intention of fasting
Okay.
for the next day. Now there's two ways of doing it. You can either, the first night of the month, have the obligation of fasting the entire month. So you have the intention that you're going to fast the entire month. Wajiban qurbatan lillahi ta'ala. When you do this, you don't have to repeat the intention every night. Okay? According to Sayyid Sistani, he says it's better to do that, to do the intention the first night that you're going to fast the entire month. According to Sayyid Khamenei, he says it's better to repeat the intention every night.
Okay.
So you do the intention for the entire month, but every night repeat the intention of fasting. Repeat it again. It doesn't have to be verbally or say it. Have it in your mind that you're going to fast the day for the month of Ramadan. Is it too late? You said.
Is it too late? That's Ahsan. Is it too late to make an intention? So say.
Is
for
it too late?
instance-
So the time we said it's before Fajr. Okay. If you intentionally don't do it, you don't do the niyyah, the intention, till after Fajr, then your fast becomes invalid. You can't fast. So you have to repeat, do qada and pay kaffara if you intentionally leave it. If unintentionally, for example, you were sleeping, you didn't do the niyyah, and you woke up during the day. Here, if you wake up before Dhuhr prayer, that we refer to as zawal,
Yep.
and you didn't do any act that breaks the fast from eating, fasting, and the rest, you can do the niyyah before zawal, before time of Dhuhr, the niyyah of wujub, and you continue fasting the day. If you wake up after Dhuhr prayer, after the zawal, then here there's no place or time to do the niyyah. Then it becomes late. But with that, you don't start eating or drinking or do everything. You have to do an intention of fasting qurbatan lillah. So you refrain from the acts that you shouldn't do during the month of Ramadan, qurbatan lillah ta'ala, but after the month of Ramadan, you have to do qada.
Okay. Ahsan, Sheikh.
Ahsanallah ilayk.
So, Sheikh, just a quick point on that. So, with regards to the problems that people may arise with, for example, like you said that there's one marja that says that it's better to make the intention each night, whereas the other marja says that it's you can do it on the first night for the rest. So, without disrespect to any scholar, but would it not be kind of easier so that people don't fall into that problem to make the intention on the first night, to complete it for the 30 months, so that for the 30 days, so that they don't fall into the problem of, I've forgotten to make the intention?
When it comes to reaching a ruling, it's not based on what is easier. It's based on the evidence that they have, or how they understand the evidence that are in front of them. They don't contradict with each other. So they're not saying one is wajib and one is haram. They're saying you can do it the first night and you don't have to repeat it. But as ihtiyat, because this is the evidence that they have, some of them, they say ihtiyatan, it's better to repeat it every night.
Yep.
Okay?
Ahsan, Sheikh.
Ahsanallah ilayk.
Next question. So yeah, I guess you've answered the next question, which was, what if I don't make an intention to fast? Which I guess you kind of touched up on there. So
Yes.
depending on the times and whatnot.
So the time and if you intentionally leave it or not. So if it's intentionally left, the niyyah, then you have to pay kaffara and do qada. But if the time before zawal, you do the niyyah and you continue fasting. After zawal, you do the niyyah of qurbatan lillah, and you have to repeat and do qada.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay. There you go, viewers. So that's one aspect of it. If you've woken up after dhuhr time and you've realized you haven't made your intention, if you're following that scholar's rulings, it doesn't give you the pass to just eat throughout the rest of the day. So please do take your precautions.
But if they do it before at night, for example, if they do the niyyah at night, and they stay asleep the whole day till the time of iftar, there's no problem. It will be accepted.
Okay.
Right? As long as they have the niyyah. So they do the niyyah and they sleep throughout the day. Obviously it's wrong because they're going to miss the salat. But if it happens for any reason and they wake up at iftar time, there's no problem. Taqabbal Allah. It would be easy.
Ahsan, Sheikh. Okay. Sheikh, next question. Something that probably hasn't come across many of the viewers. In the books of scholars, they mention the intention of fasting has to be continuous. Yes. What do they mean exactly by this phrase?
Okay, so our maraja, when they speak about the intention of fasting, they say it's not enough to just have the intention. This intention has to continue with you from the beginning of fasting to the end. So if any moment during this day you take the decision of breaking your fast, you say, I'm going to break my fast for any reason. The moment you take this decision, then they say this intention has been cut or stopped. Okay. It's not continuous. Therefore, your fast will become invalid and you have to do qada for that. Even if after you take this decision, you repent. You say, astaghfirullah, what did I do? And you repent, with that you have to do qada. Yeah. Because the intention was stopped or cut. Yeah. This is the meaning of the intention being continuous or staying from the beginning to the end of fasting.
Okay. Ahsan, Sheikh. Moving on, Sheikh. This is a good one. I like this question. What should I do if I'm eating and I realize that it's Fajr time? So the time of fasting is obviously already come in, and I realize that I'm eating. What do I do?
Yeah. You see, we say that you should stop at imsak time, which is few minutes before Fajr time.
Can you just clarify that for us? Because some say 5, 10, 15, 20. What exactly is that time?
There's the time itself is ihtiyat, is a precaution. Okay. There's no exact evidence for the time itself being 5, 10, 15. It's out of precaution. But according to the evidence we have, you should stop eating at the time of Fajr. Okay. So you shouldn't be eating after the Fajr takes place, which is Al-Fajr al-Sadiq that we refer to when the light appears in the sky. So if you're eating up to the time of Fajr and you find out that it is the time of Fajr, you're still eating. The scholars, our maraja, all of them, they say that you have to spit any food that you have in your mouth or any water that you have in your mouth, or to stop any act that you are doing that breaks the fast. Yeah. Straight away. And you can continue fasting, or you can start fasting and there's no problem in it. See, because again, imsak is out of ihtiyat, you stop eating. Yeah. But if you keep eating after the time of imsak, regardless of with the calendars, if they put it 5, 10, 15, if you keep eating, it's not haram. But out of ihtiyat, it's better to stop, just to make sure. If you have food in your mouth, if you have water in your mouth, you spit it out and you can fast. You can fast. If you swallow this food, so you know it's Fajr time, and you have the food or the water in your mouth, and you say, oh, I'm going to swallow it straight away, then you can't fast. Your fast becomes invalid. Okay. And you have to repeat and do qada and pay kaffara too.
Yeah. Just another point on that, Sheikh, before we move on. So, like, how strict are the rulings in regards to that? Like, for example, you're saying that if there's food in your mouth, like, for instance, someone might be, you might have someone that's standing in the kitchen, say at 4 o'clock in the morning, for instance, and the Fajr time is at, say, 4:06, and the person's eating, and then they just look at the time and they realize that it's halfway down their throat, and it's something that comes to you as a shock. It's like you're chewing, you're eating, and then you realize that oh my God, I just seen the time. What do I do? So like, how strict is the ruling in regards to that? If it's halfway down your throat, you weren't able to spit it out, or is it like you must do what you have to do to make it come out? How strict is it?
So for us, what we go through, especially with the technical problems that we face here and there, with the new programs that we have. So we have to be patient. For the viewers, inshallah, they should be patient with us. And inshallah, by time we will improve by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to the question of eating and knowing or realizing that it's Fajr time, as I was saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't want to put us under any difficulty. And we shouldn't put too much pressure on the believers. So if you're eating and the food is in your throat, and you find out that it's the time of Fajr, obviously you can't spit the food out from your throat unless you force yourself to vomit, which will break your fast too, because you're intentionally vomiting, and this breaks the fast. And we're not going to ask someone to stab themselves in the throat to remove the food. Here, because it's inside of your throat, so you can swallow it because you're not eating it from your mouth, so it doesn't break the fast. Okay, and you can't. Yeah, it's something that you're forced to do, right? So there's no problem, and you can continue fasting with that.
Ahsantum, thanks for the clarification. Next question. So something that a problem that we all fall into year in, year out. The question states, nowadays many different mosques and or Islamic centers have their own Shahr Ramadan calendar. How do I know which calendar to follow? And the second part of that question is there other means of determining when I have to stop eating and when I can start eating again other than having to follow the calendar?
So it is true that we have different calendars and different times, few minutes here and there, before or after. Now, if you want a simple answer, I would say follow those who you trust. If you trust a certain center, a certain group, a certain scholar, follow them. If you don't trust anyone, then you can go to a more traditional way of indicating the time of your iftar and the time of your imsak.
Okay.
So as we mentioned in the previous question, one of the previous questions, that the time of Salatul Fajr is when the light appears in the sky, which we refer to as Al-Fajr al-Sadiq, after the first Fajr. So when you see this light appearing in the sky, that refers to Al-Fajr al-Sadiq. Before that, you stop eating out of precaution. Then the time of iftar. The time of iftar, after sunset, there's a redness in the sky that appears in the east. We refer to it as Al-Humra al-Mashriqiyya. According to our maraja, like Sayyid Sistani, Sayyid Khamenei, they say that the time of iftar is after the disappearance of the Al-Humra al-Mashriqiyya. After this redness disappears from the sky. So after sunset, you wait, you see this redness in the east, and you wait for it to disappear, then you break your fast. This can be a more traditional way. There's a third traditional way, which is very complicated, of looking at the shadow, putting a stick and looking at the shadow to indicate the time. But that's very traditional and complicated. So we limit it to just following Al-Humra al-Mashriqiyya and Al-Fajr al-Sadiq.
Yep, Ahsan Sheikh. Just one more point on that before we move on. There's this thing that you hear some people say that if you stand outside and spot a star in the sky, is that something that's misunderstood? Is that something authentic?
To spot a star, I haven't heard of something of spotting a star, because it's based when it comes to sighting to the moon. It has nothing to do with the stars, and there's no ruling that is based on sighting a star in fiqh. So maybe it's a traditional thing from people.
Because they usually say
they say it becomes dark for the star to appear. Maybe it's dark, but sometimes you can see some stars during before sunset. not during the day. During the sunset, you can see some stars, but it has no connection with the rulings of fasting, with seeing a star, unless you want to sing to the twinkle, twinkle, little stars. But other than that, there's nothing.
Ahsan, Sheikh. Thanks for clarifying that one. Sheikh, attributing a lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam breaks the fast. Can you please explain, sorry once again viewers.
It's a practical lesson for being patient, inshallah.
Being patient, inshallah.
Yeah.
So Sheikh, the question again,
yes.
Attributing a lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam breaks the fast. Can you please explain exactly what's happening with regards to this statement?
Yeah, so according to our Maraja, they say that if you attribute intentionally a lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, or to our Imams alayhim salam, you break your fast. Which means that when it comes to the verses of the Quran, you can freely narrate them or mention them during your fast, because we believe that this Quran is the same Quran that came down on the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have certainty about it and about its verses. But when it comes to the narrations, it's a problem. When you are fasting and you come and narrate a narration from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, without knowing whether it is correct or not, it's a problem. As a precaution, ihtiyat, you should always mention a reference when you narrate a narration. So mention the reference from the book that you read it from, or the scholar that mentioned it. Now, if someone is speaking about a topic and he's stuck in a corner, sometimes they come up with a narration from their own pocket, right? They say the Prophet said, the Imam said, and they know it's a lie, that the Prophet didn't say. And how many people in history used to do that? Used to come up with their own narrations for their own personal interest. If you do that intentionally, you break your fast straight away. Even if you say after that, no, it was wrong, or you repent and you say it was lie, it's too late. Okay. If you narrate a narration with knowing that it is authentic, and then you find out that it's not authentic, in that case, there's no problem in your fasting, because you didn't intend to lie. Okay, there's no problem.
That's only if you know it's authentic.
Yes.
If you think it's authentic.
You think it's authentic, but then you find out that it's not authentic. In that case, you don't break your fast, because you didn't have the intention of lying. It's interesting that another ruling, if we want to add to it, if you intend to lie, and then you find out that what you said is correct, so you make up a narration, but then you search and you find that this narration exists. So it happened. They say your fast doesn't become invalid.
Interesting.
Because in reality, it's not a lie.
Yeah.
Right.
But wouldn't it be based on the intention? But
this is the ruling of the marja, I'm saying, right? But it's something between you and Allah. If you have the audacity to lie and attribute something against Rasulullah, the least thing you should care about is your fast. You have other problems to care about.
Ahsantum, Sheikh.
Ahsanallah.
Sheikh, interesting one. A couple of years ago, actually, it became a topic of interest amongst a lot of people. Can I smoke while fasting? If so, does this also relate to the inhaler that the people that have asthma, they take the puffer? What's the situation?
According to Sayyid Sistani, Sayyid Khamenei, and most of the Maraja, based on obligatory precaution, ihtiyat wujubi, you can't smoke during fasting. So although it's not considered as drinking or eating, but with that they say ihtiyat wujubi, you shouldn't smoke. Even according to some scholars who say that it doesn't break the fast, like Sayyid Fadlallah, for example, or with that he believes that in itself it's haram to smoke, regardless whether in the month of Ramadan or outside the month of Ramadan. So you're committing something haram, but it doesn't break your fast, according to him. But according to our Maraja, it does break the fast, says Sistani Sayyid Khamenei, based on ihtiyat wujubi. The inhaler or as puffer, we call it.
Puffer, inhaler.
Yeah. Also, you have different views. According to Sayyid Sistani, he says that if it goes in through the air track, there's no problem. It doesn't break the fast. If it goes in through the food track, it breaks the fast. Now, how is that happen? How does that happen? I don't know. I've never tried it in my life, and I don't know how it happens. But I've asked, or last year I remember I was mentioning this ruling, and one of the sisters said to me, if you inhale it in a certain way, it goes straight to the lung. Yeah. Okay, so those who use it know how, probably know better than us how to use it. This is according to Sayyid Sistani. If it goes down through the air track, there's no problem. Food track, there's a problem. According to Sayyid Khamenei, if the air is mixed, if the air goes down straight to the stomach, it breaks the fast. Yeah. If it's mixed with medicine, it breaks the fast. If it goes straight to the lung, it doesn't break the fast. Yeah. And yeah, that's the two maraj.
So that's more like up to the person that's using it. It's up to them to determine which way and if they know how to use it and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. Next question, Sheikhna. Another one which I believe there was a change of ruling about it, but inshallah you can give us a clarification on it. Can one immerse their head under the water, so like completely going under in a swimming pool, for example, or a bathtub or whatever it is?
It is common that immersing the complete head under the water breaks the fast. And this is the common view between our scholars. However, according to Sayyid Sistani, he says that it doesn't break the fast. Out of precaution, you shouldn't do it. يعني احتياط, استحبابي, you shouldn't do it, but it doesn't break the fast. According to Sayyid Khamenei, it does break the fast. So it depends who you follow as a marja. This is when you immerse your whole head under the water, like a swimming pool if you swim under the water. But if you're having a shower, having your head under the shower doesn't classify as immersing your complete head under the water. So there's no problem according to all the maraja to have a shower while fasting. Obviously don't open your mouth and drink. But to immerse, to swim, according to Sayyid Sistani, there's no problem, as long as you don't obviously swallow. According to other scholars, it breaks the fast.
Ahsan, Sheikh. Another one. Does an injection while fasting void the fast, whether it's a blood test or injecting, for example, cortisone into your back or whatever it is, any form of injection?
When it comes to injections, according to Sayyid Sistani, any injection doesn't break the fast. Yeah. Any type of injection. Even certain injections that help you to feel full. Yep. Neutral, what they call it, nutritional injections. There's no problem in that. Okay. According to him, Sayyid Sistani. According to Sayyid Khamenei, if the injection is given in the muscle, it doesn't break the fast. If it's given in the vein, it breaks the fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ahsan, Sheikh.
And obviously nutritional injections are not allowed for the followers of Sayyid Khamenei. You have to struggle more.
Yeah. Sheikh, does tooth extraction void the fast? If so, what about the blood that's in the mouth?
Tooth or any dental work doesn't break the fast as long as you don't swallow anything. So if you remove a teeth, if you remove a tooth or you do any work in your mouth, as long as you don't swallow, it doesn't break the fast. And the same thing if your mouth is bleeding. It's wajib to spit the blood out to clean your mouth, but you shouldn't swallow it. The moment you swallow anything, you break your fast.
Yeah. Okay. What if there's some rulings that have a leeway? For example, not sure if it applies here. If there's a minute amount that gets mixed with the saliva, and let's, for example, say that it can no longer be called or classified as blood, and you swallow that, does that void the fast?
As if it's a small amount and you already did your best in cleaning your mouth and stopping the bleeding, and it gets mixed with the saliva inside your mouth, there's no problem in that. It doesn't break the fast.
Sheikhna, what is the kuffara as we spoke in previous sessions, what the kafara is. What is the kafara for breaking the fast intentionally in the month of Ramadan? And I know this could be an open-ended question because it depends on if you're breaking it with something haram or if you're breaking it just for the sake of breaking it on something halal, for example, like water or food. Can you shed some light for us on the matter?
So, if you break your fast intentionally in the month of Ramadan, you have two options in our time. Either to fast 2 months for each day, and the 2 months should be 31 days so in a row. So you do first month and 1 day from the next month, and then you can separate the rest. That's for every day that you break your fast intentionally, 2 months. Or the other kafara is to feed 60 people for every day that you break your fast. They say each person to up to 750 grams of flour, rice, and the like. Now, the kafara is considered as a type of punishment here if you perform a sin. That's why it's very intense when you look at fasting 2 months for each day. It's very hard, and I'm sure no one fasts 2 months for the day that they break. They go to the third one. Or the first one that they used to perform in the past of letting a slave free or freeing a slave. That's something also big. The third one, which is feeding 60 people, that was something big in the past. It was something difficult. Something that they used to feel that they've done something wrong and they had to pay a big fine for it. But today when you say to someone, feed 60 people, right, and you tell him 750 grams of flour for each one of them, so that's less than $1 for each person. Okay? Let alone that this is not enough to feed someone with less than $1, but it will end up less than $50 for the day, which is nothing for people. This is why they find it easy to pay the kafara. So maybe we can put a question mark on this ruling and say we should think about this punishment. Is it a punishment today? Is it making people refrain from doing this action? Or is it making it easier for people to say, well, we'll break the fast, we did something haram, we ask for repentance, we ask forgiveness from Allah, and we pay $50. That's fine, to pay $50. So maybe we should come up, increase it, make it more. Say feed 60 people at a restaurant, for example. Then it becomes hard. And you'll think about doing it the next one. Take them for iftar, 60 people. So you'll pay how much for that 60 people? So let's say $600, then you'll feel that it's a punishment. But to pay $50, that's nothing.
Sheikh, just a bit of light on that one. So with the 31 days consecutive plus the other days for each day, is that inclusive of making up the day also itself?
Yes.
Or is that separate to the 2 months?
No, so the kafara is to do the 2 months, so 60 days. Okay? And then you have to do qada for that day. But when you do 31 days of the kafara, so you do 30 days of the first month and 1 day from the next month. Right? And then you do qada anytime you want before the next month of Ramadan.
So the penalty is different to making up the day itself?
Yes.
Okay. Ahsan, Sheikh. Sheikh, now moving on. What is the kafara for the one who can't fast for medical reasons?
For medical reason, it's not a punishment. Here, the kafara is not considered as a punishment because you're not intentionally leaving the fast. You're forced not to fast. That's why it's enough to pay 750 grams of flour or its like for every day, which is less than $1 or $1 to be with ihtiyat for each day.
So multiplied by the 30 days?
Yeah, about 30 days. If your sickness continue till the next month of Ramadan, so throughout the year you'll stay sick the whole time, you don't have to do qada. You just pay the kafara. But if you get cured during the year and you're able to fast, it becomes wajib for you to do the qada.
Of those 30 days?
Of those 30 days. Okay. But if you have a continuous sickness, you don't have to do qada. You just pay the kafara of 750 grams of each day.
And again, like with that, so if you've cured during the time that's passed after Shahr Ramadan, do you only have to make up the qada of that year that passed, or do you have to like go all the way back for all the years that you've
It depends. If the previous years your sickness was continuous, you don't have to do qada.
Yeah.
Okay? If you didn't do qada in the previous years, then you've already have to pay kafara for missing out doing the qada, 750 grams of flour, the same thing, for leaving it. But you don't have to do it in 1 year, all of them.
Yeah.
Keep fasting the whole year then in that case.
Ahsan, Sheikh, ahsan. Sheikh, this one's an interesting one. So it's a bit of a long question, so viewers, try and stay focused with me, please. They say that if you place an object in your mouth, for example, a toothbrush or a toothpick or whatever it may be, some people put a pencil in their mouth, for example. So they say if you place an object in your mouth while it is dry, and then it is taken out, so it's now become the saliva or the wetness that has come out of your mouth on the object has now become mixed with the air that's around you. They say that if you place that back in your mouth and the wetness is mixed with the saliva, they say if that's swallowed, it breaks your fast. Is this correct?
You see, any wetness that comes externally, it breaks the fast. So anything that comes from outside, it breaks the fast. Your saliva in your mouth doesn't break your fast. Even if you collect it in your mouth and then you swallow it, it doesn't break your fast.
That's because it's internal.
Internal. So anything external, it breaks the fast. If you place any object in your mouth, a toothpick, and then you remove it, it has certain wetness on it. If that wetness is a little, not much, and you put it back, you don't feel anything, there's no problem. If it's a big amount of saliva going out, and then it's going back to your mouth, so there's an external wetness that is, you're putting an external wetness into your mouth.
Yeah.
If you swallow it straight away, you break your fast. It invalidates your fast because there's an external wetness that is coming from outside to your mouth and you're swallowing it. Okay? But if it's a little amount and you place it in your mouth and it gets mixed with your saliva inside your mouth to the extent that it's not considered as an external wetness anymore, then it doesn't break your fast.
Yep.
This is the rule.
Okay. Ahsantum, Sheikh.
Ahsanallah ilayk.
Sheikh, if I put something in my mouth while fasting due to forgetfulness and or if I'm brushing my teeth, is it necessary to spit whatever is in my mouth out 3 times or is once sufficient?
So there's no exact number of how many times you have to spit, but you just have to be careful when you put, let's say you unintentionally place some food in your mouth or water, right? You spit it out, you clean your mouth, and that is enough, as long as you have certainty that there's nothing left in there. When it comes to brushing the teeth, of course, it's permissible during the month of Ramadan, during the fast, there's no problem in that, as long as you don't swallow anything. So if you brush your teeth, you wash your mouth, right, with water, even for once, that is enough. Even if you still feel the taste of the paste in your saliva, there's no problem in that.
Yeah. Okay. Ahsan, Sheikh.
Ahsan.
Inshallah, viewers, not too many questions to go, but they're actually getting more interesting as we start to finish off. Sheikhna, if I owe days of fasting from previous years and have not made them up prior to the following year of the holy month, is there a penalty for this?
So I think we mentioned this, that if you have qada and you delay, you have to pay also a kafara for delaying it, 750 grams. Unless there's a sickness that is continuous from one year to another, then you don't have to pay kafara because you don't have to do the qada. Yeah.
Sheikh, but with regards to that, so let's give a hypothetical situation. So let's say a person has 100 days to make up, all right? And then the following year comes and they've only made up some of them, right? So then let's assume they've got 80 days left. And then they've paid the kafara for those 80 days because they've made up 20 of them. If the following year comes around again and they haven't made them up, do they pay kafara on those days again?
Look, if they have 100 days to make up, it means there was something wrong in the past, right? Because that's more than 3 years of fasting. It depends on the situation. If that will put someone under pressure, or will cause them to stop fasting altogether, then usually we don't tell him come and pay the kuffara, all of it. Okay, we tell him let's do the previous year. Okay, if you can do qada during this year, barakallah, do the qada. If you can't do the qada and you miss it, let's pay kuffara for this year. And slowly you get them to do the kuffara for the rest of the years. So they still have to pay the kuffara, but it depends on the person how much they can handle. Let it be financially or intellectually. Because some people are maybe limited. If you put a lot of pressure on them,
you've lost them.
He'll tell you, I'll see you later. So let's be wise, I think, in the way that we approach this kafara. Someone came once and he said, I want to pay the kafara of not fasting and praying. Told him, for how many years? He said, 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he was in his late 80s. So I was thinking, should I tell him to pay for 60 years? That would be like paying a big amount of money.
Yeah.
Or no, I looked at him and I saw that he's barely praying right now. If I told him, he would leave religion. So I said to him, just go, keep praying and Allah Azza wa Jalla will forgive you, inshallah. So it depends on the person, I think.
So obviously each person has their own circumstances and you answer accordingly. Okay. Sheikhna, this one's a very important one that a lot of the brothers and sisters tend to argue with year in, year out. It may seem very technical to people like ourselves, but inshallah you can shed some light with a bit of detail in regards to this matter. The question is, why is there a difference in understanding on when the holy month begins according to different scholars? I mean, don't we all see the same moon for starting and breaking our fast for Eid? This scholar says this, that scholar says that. Why does one say you have to see with the naked eye, another says you have to use a telescope? We follow the times according to science for our normal prayers in our day-to-day lives and all these calendars that are scientifically proven. Yet when Shahr Ramadan comes around, we act as if we've been lost throughout the whole year. And what's the situation with this? Like, you even see memes coming out year in, year out. Say it's Sistani followers, you start tomorrow because everyone else has started today, and all this sort of stuff. Like, what can you shed some light on it? Because we actually are in a great confusion, and it's something that happens year in, year out. It's as if the people are very confused about it.
Look, this question is very complicated, and it's a very sensitive topic to speak about. So we have to be cautious in the way we approach it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu khudu hidrakum. Be cautious when it comes to dealing with the things around you. From one aspect, we can say that the rulings of our scholars are not based on certainty, absolute certainty. Absolute certainty is something that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from the Ma'soom alayhi salam, from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They give you a ruling with absolute certainty. Our scholars, they say, we study the text that we have in front of us from the Quran, from the Sunnah, and based on our understanding of this evidence that we have, we reach a conclusion. Every mujtahid has the right to study, if they are qualified, to study and to reach a conclusion based on the evidence that they provide. As a mukallaf, or as a person that is not up to the level of ijtihad, you have to do taqlid, as they say in the fiqh rulings. So when you do taqlid, you have to follow someone who you trust in their knowledge. If you can find someone who you trust and you take them as a marja, then you abide to the ruling. You don't worry about what other scholars say, the views of other scholars. It's enough for you to follow the ruling of your scholar. Okay. Now, if the problem was limited to that, to different views between scholars, it would have been easy. But unfortunately, it's not. By time we are noticing how unorganized we are. We have no system when it comes to the Islamic calendar. Meaning that we don't have a system to follow in indicating the beginning or the end of the month that can unite all of us as Shia. This is a reality. And with having different authorities, it's impossible to reach this unity in indicating, because everyone or every group follows their own marja, and you can't come and force them to follow one religious leader. Okay? So based on having different religious authorities, there's no doubt that we'll end up with different opinions and different date for the beginning of the month and different dates for the end of the month. So we have to accept that it's impossible to achieve unity or to have an organized system in indicating the beginning or the end of the Islamic calendar. According to some scholars, they used to say al-nizam fil la nizam. That a system is in a non-systematic organization. There's no system in an organized system. The problem that we see every year, the fight is not limited to the views of the scholars, different scholars. It became a fight between the followers of the same scholar. So if for example, Sayyid Sistani says you have to sight the moon with your naked eye, we follow the method of sighting the moon with naked eye, because this is his evidence. If Sayyid Khamenei says you can use a telescope, you follow this method. Okay? There's no problem in that. But when you come and you use the method of a certain scholar, and you see evidence for the beginning of the month or the ending of the month, and then another person or another scholar that follows the same marja comes out and say, no, this is not the beginning of the month. It's not today, it's tomorrow. Or it's not today, it was yesterday. Then this will cause a confusion between the believers. To make it easy, or to simplify it for the respected brothers and sisters, especially that we are approaching this war zone soon, Friday night at least, we have to work on sighting the moon. So to make it easy, I can say indicating the month is not limited to the ruling of the marja. The ruling of the marja is the method that you follow. But you don't have to wait for the statement to come from your marja. And anyhow, the maraja usually they don't issue statements to the West. They issue statements about Iraq, Iran, certain countries. Yeah. But when it comes to the West or Australia, we don't see a statement, anything for the people here. So it's not limited to wait. You shouldn't be waiting for a statement to come from the maraja, because it's not going to happen. We hope that it happens in the future, but in the meantime, it doesn't happen. There's two other options that you can follow. Or we'll make them three. The first option is to refer to a scholar who you trust. So a local scholar who you trust them in their knowledge, you trust them in their piety, you refer to them and you see. If you trust them, follow. If you don't trust them, don't follow them. Go to the second option. The second option is to seek the sighting of two just witnesses. So if two just witnesses come and say to you, we sighted the moon, and you trust them, you take it and you start fasting. If you don't trust them, you don't take their statement. I trust them, I take it. And I'll say tomorrow is the beginning of the month. You don't trust these two witnesses, don't take their statement and continue the month for 30 days and then start the day after, the third day, as the first day of the month of Ramadan. There is no problem to have different views. You can't find the statement of two just witnesses, go to the third option, which is to continue the Shaban to 30 days, and then the day after, consider it to be the first month. Right? So you can have your own beginning of the month, and you can have your own ending of the month. Or if you sight the moon yourself, that's another option that we can add. If you go out and you sight the moon, it happens, although it becomes very difficult at the beginning and the end of the month to sight the moon. But if it happens that you sight the moon, and then the marja comes and tell you tomorrow is not the Eid, or tomorrow is not the beginning of the month, you say to him, sorry, I sighted the moon. If a scholar says to you it's not tomorrow, you cited the moon, you don't follow them. Okay? So yes, we're not going to end up having one beginning of the month and one Eid, but at least we can solve this war that happens every year where it creates a lot of enmity, and we welcome the month with a lot of hate and a lot of rumors and a lot of backbiting against certain, especially people who try to help the community in indicating the month. Personally, I don't like to go into this debate every month, but from the amount of messages that I receive from the brothers and sisters, especially the youth, I find it wajib on me to speak about it and say to them that according to the evidence that I have, tomorrow is the beginning of the month or the day after. But with that, I respect those who disagree with me. I respect those who may have a different view, even if they follow the same marja. Usually I give the ruling of based on the ruling of Sayyid Sistani or Sayyid Khamenei, because most of the youth follow these two maraj. So let us accept, I'd say, let us accept having different days, and let us accept having different views, and let us pray in the month of Ramadan for one day to have an organized system and to be united, inshallah.
Just one more aspect on that, Sheikh. Like I said, it's a very very broad question. That a lot of people, they say throughout the year, for example, they mention a statement saying we're in the 21st century. Like, if it can be seen with a telescope and it's actually there, like, what's the problem with it? And this is the main thing that happens, where people, like, some will come and tell you that there's one narration that is what the Maraja go off in regards to them saying that it has to be seen with the naked eye. But it's just that's the confusing aspect for a lot of us people, where it's like, if it's there, it's there. Like, we're in a century now where, for example, there was no telescopes back in the days. Whereas now we have the technology, so like some people come and say, why can't we utilize the technology in order to make it easier for ourselves, since Islam is wrapped around this whole concept of, it's meant to be easy and move forward, and science and technology and you know what I mean? Like, what is it that stops people from following the telescope method compared to people following the naked eye method? Is it based off of a narration?
So, without going too much in detail in that, because that has to do with fiqh al-istidlali and the evidence that we have, but I can mention a few points that the ruling of citing is based on certain narrations that we have. صوموا للرؤية وافطروا للرؤية أو صوموا لرؤيته وافطروا لرؤيته وليس بالتظني, and don't follow things that are not certain. As I mentioned, that every scholar understands the evidence in a different way. It goes back to the environment that they were raised in, the way they think. It can all influence the conclusion that they reach. We can raise certain questions about this topic. We can ask, number one, is citing amr ta'abbudi? When we say amr ta'abbudi, it means that it's an obligation that you have to perform. For example, Salatul Subh is 2 rak'at. This 2 rak'at are amr ta'abbudi. You can't pray Salatul Subh 3 rak'at. You have to do it 2. So when it comes to indicating the beginning of the month, is sighting the moon amr ta'abbudi, or is it a wasila, a mean to get to certainty? If you consider it to be amr ta'abbudi, an obligation that you have to perform, then you have no right to say, I will reach certainty through a different means. You get it?
Yeah.
I haven't found any scholar who believes that it is amr ta'abbudi, that it's an obligation. They say it's a way to reach certainty.
Yeah.
Sighting the moon is a way to reach certainty. In the past, this was the only way to reach certainty. Sighting the moon was the only way to reach certainty. Many people were illiterate. It was calculation didn't give certainty back then, so the only way was through sighting the moon. If today someone comes and claim that calculation provides certainty, then Islam can't put a limit to this mean, to this way of reaching certainty. Because Islam doesn't put limits to the ways of reaching certainty. If you can reach it through citing, barakallah. If you can reach certainty through calculation, do it. And this is why, according to some of the rulings of Sayyid Sistani, for example, he mentions that if calculation gives you certainty, you can follow it. Although he himself, maybe it doesn't give him certainty. That's why in other rulings he says it doesn't give certainty, and he gives example why it doesn't give certainty. But according to what I see, maybe on a personal level, I believe it does give certainty. But I can't come and force others to accept this view. I think by time, some of the rulings will change, and the views of the scholars will change by time. But for the meantime, we have to follow the ruling, or you have to follow the ruling of your marja in this regard. So yes, Islam upgrades by time. Some rulings change by time based on the change in the understanding of the scholars, and that's a positive thing in Islam. Many rulings change by time, and this ruling is not a divine ruling that came down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it's possible to change by time, and there's no problem to question it. Right? You're not questioning Allah, you're not questioning the Prophet. There's no problem in that.
Ahsantum, Shaykh. Thank you very much for shedding light on that very complicated question, and even though you've answered it and not many people would have seen it, I do hope that our viewers do share it, which can be a means of hopefully turning out this fire that is created as we get closer to the Holy Month. Sheikh, now 2 more questions. Again, sorry viewers, we've taken up a lot of your time and there has been a few technical difficulties. As the Sheikh said at the start, inshallah, we do hope to improve every time. It's something that is new to the community, something that hasn't really been done on an international scale from an Australian perspective. So please bear patient with us, and inshallah, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, we will progress and advance in our production and whatnot. So we've got 2 more questions for the Sheikh, inshallah. Sheikh, another important one, similar in complication to the previous question. Is it permissible for me to purposely travel to break my fast? We see this trend of people, especially when it gets to Eid. If one scholar says it is Eid, the followers of the other maraja will, as a precautionary measure, travel so that they are not undertaking a haram fast, as it's haram to fast on the day of Eid. The moral here is, why is there so much confusion? Are we making it hard? Are we behind? What's the solution? And please shed a bit of light on this travel distance thing with regards to Sydney.
Are we making it hard? Maybe when we don't accept the different views that we have, we do make it hard. But the moment you accept having different views, the moment you accept that it's impossible to get everyone to have the same Eid as you, or to start with the same day as you, it becomes easy. So accepting our differences will make it easy on us. It starts from us first. Now, when it comes to traveling to break your fast, in order to have a Eid with, let's say, your family members. In the books of fiqh, they mention the scholars, and I have to make it clear that I'm here to mention the rulings of the scholars, of the maraja, right? Regardless of if I agree or disagree with it, if I find it ethical or not. But they say there's no problem to travel in order to escape from fasting. So even if you do it intentionally, for the whole month, every day, you go from Sydney to outside to Wollongong, let's say, and then you come back, so you leave the city and you come back, then you break your fast, and there's no problem in that. Unless you become kathir al-safar, then you have to fast, right? Is there a problem in doing that? If you do it just with no reason, I personally see it as unethical. It's not something good. You can lie to everyone, but you can't lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah knows what's inside of you. You're escaping not from fasting, you're escaping from the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're escaping from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's sending His blessings to you. He's opening His arms, metaphorically, His arms with love, with mercy to you, and you're telling Him, no, sorry, I'm going to trouble, right? This is something that will make your heart dry, and it will prevent the divine light to reach your soul. You will lose a lot by time if you get used to using these loopholes in religion, which you find in the books. But if there's a reason such as pleasing your family, being with your family, having the same Eid with your family, there's no problem to go break your fast for one day and to come and to have a social gathering. Anyway, we can't have it this year, social gathering, so it's a good thing. Unfortunately, we can't have it. But in general, you can do that in order to stay connected to your family.
Sheikh, but the thing here, before we add the second part of the question, which was the distance and Sydney and whatnot, like it is a part of the confusion that happens every year. Like so your solution, you're kind of saying whatever your scholar says at the start and at the end of the month, in the means of what the scholar is saying, if you haven't done your own determination of sighting the moon and whatnot. So your solution is follow the scholar that you follow and trust and believe in what he's saying, and there's no need for you to take, for example, that precautionary measure in saying that, oh, today could be the Eid, so I'm going to break it by traveling because it could be or it can't be. So is this something we should just follow the scholar on, period? Or is there an aspect to it where it's like it's okay if your scholar hasn't said anything, the one that you follow, and just if you want to break it by traveling purposely so that you're not fasting on the day of Eid, is this something that I could say you could recommend in a way?
Obviously, fasting the day of Eid is haram, as you know. But if, according to Marja X, tomorrow is the Eid, and according to Marja Y, tomorrow is not the Eid, and you continue fasting, it's not haram, because it's not your Eid. Right? It's not your Eid. You're not fasting your Eid. Because we said we have different days of Eid. There shouldn't be a doubt whether tomorrow is the beginning of the month or not, or if it's the end of the month or not. Because as we said, we have certain options. If you can't if you can't trust the statement of a scholar, if you can't trust the statement of two just witnesses, if you can't sight the moon, then you continue fasting 30 days, and you consider the 31st day as the first day of the new month, the Eid, right? So you're not traveling based on the doubt or to escape from fasting or Eid, but rather you're traveling just for social reason, just to be with your family, right? That should be one of the reasons why.
Ahsan, Sheikh. And just that last point before we get to the final question, there's a thing on the on some of the Maraja's websites, one from what I know about, I'm not sure about the rest, but this whole 22.5 kilometers, I believe it is, they say that you need to travel that amount of distance before you can break your fast. Is that still applicable to Sydney, considering the fact that Sydney has now become a wider city?
So in fiqh, there's a ruling for al-mudun al-sughra, the small cities, and there's a different ruling for al-mudun al-kubra, the major cities. In al-mudun al-sughra, the small cities, if you travel for 22 kilometers or 22.5 according to some, you break your fast. Let's say in Lebanon, if you travel from the city to the south and you cut 22.5 kilometers, you break your fast. Okay, because there's small cities there. When it comes to Australia or Sydney, there's the ruling of al-mudun al-kubra. As long as you are in Sydney, you don't break your fast. You don't break fast. No matter how fast. Far, not fast. How far? Only when you get to the borders of Sydney and you become outside of the city, then you break your fast. So no matter how how far you go in Sydney, there's no problem. There's one ruling for Sayyid Sistani, however. He says if you travel a very far distance, he doesn't put down how much the distance, how long the distance is, but if it's so far where you become close to the borders, then you have to be cautious there and break your fast or pray qasr. Only if it's a very long drive. But
you're still within the city?
Yes, but if it's next to the borders of the city, so you're still considered in the city, but because you traveled a very long distance and it's close to the borders, then you break your fast and you pray qasr. That's only for Sayyid Sistani, I've seen it.
Ahsan, Sheikh. Interesting point. Sheikh, final question, and viewers, again, thank you for your patience. As a final note, please advise us of the best dua during the holy month of Ramadan, the best action in the holy month, and some of the key occasions during the holy month.
The best dua is the dua that comes from your heart. Any dua that comes from your heart is the best dua. So it differs from one person to another. If we want to look at the more traditional supplications that we have, also it can differ from one person to another. Every person is connected to a certain dua. Some people, they feel connected to dua kume. Some people dua ul-iftitah. Some people to dua Abu Hamza al-Thumali, dua makarim al-akhlaq. I don't know if anyone is connected to dua al-Jawshan al-Kabir or not. Right? So everyone has his own relation with a certain dua. Dua al-iftitah is recommended to be recited every day, so this is one of the recommendations. And I personally like dua Abu Hamza al-Thumali and dua makarim al-akhlaq. I find myself benefiting from them when I recite them.
Yep. Ahsan, Sheikh. And the best action in the holy month?
Best action, of course, the obligation of fasting comes first, and then having a connection with the Quran, the book of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially that it was revealed in this month, and this month is considered the month of the Quran. So have a strong relation with the Quran, open your heart to the Quran, live with the words of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, try to recite the book of Allah and to reflect on its meaning. So don't be in a race to finish, to do khatam of the Quran. If you understand one verse from the holy book of the Quran properly, it's better than 1,000 times of finishing the Quran. You'll be rewarded 100 times more than finishing the Quran. It's not about how much you do. Some people in history, like the Khawarij, for example, they used to spend their days and nights praying and fasting and reading Quran. It didn't help them in any way. Someone who stood against the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, such as Shimr, he memorized the whole Quran, and with that he stood against the Ahlul Bayt and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So it's not about just reciting, having a nice voice, although it is recommended to know the ahkam of tajweed, but at the same time to stand and reflect on the meanings of the Quran. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he explains that tartil as reading with a nice voice to the best of your ability, and to reflect on the meanings of the verses. That's the best action to be performed.
And just the last aspect, Sheikh, some of the key occasions.
Holy month, the most important occasions are Layal al-Qadr or Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr is a key point in this month and in our whole year. If we want to benefit from Laylatul Qadr, we need to start from now, to prepare ourselves from now, as we mentioned at the beginning with the different steps of the journey. And also I think it's important to have a strong relation with the Imam of our time, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. If we reflect on the connection of Laylatul Qadr and the Imam of our time, if we have a strong connection with our Master Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, this can help us to benefit from Laylatul Qadr. So the best action is to have a strong relation with the Imam of our time and with the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, especially their Master Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. To see when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالْرُوحُ فِيهَا, where does the angels go down? It goes down to my house. It goes down to my heart. No, it goes down to the heart of the perfect man, being the Imam alayhi salam. So if I reflect on the relation of Laylatul Qadr and the Imam alayhi salam, the relation of Laylatul Qadr and Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the relation between Laylatul Qadr and Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, then I can benefit from these nights. And I can benefit from the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. If you keep them aside, you would not benefit from anything in religion.
Ahsantum, Sheikh. Thank you very much, Sheikh, for your time with us today and for your excellent knowledge that you've provided us with and all the light that you've shed upon the questions that have been asked. Dear viewers, we'd like to thank you once again for another week of questions and answers with the scholar. Inshallah, we do hope to get obviously more wide in our knowledge and more interesting as the weeks come along with regards to questions and different episodes. Again, we do apologize for the inconsistency in the video that was broadcasted live due to the technical difficulties. Inshallah, we do endeavor to fix these issues from next week moving forward. Jazakumullah khair al-jaza. Please do look for the moon this Friday night, inshallah. And inshallah, if you do see it, just remember what the Sheikh has said tonight. And we hope to see you next week at the same time at 8:30 p.m. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجلون وبضر تكشفون ونصر تعزون وسلطان حق تظهرون ورحمة منك تجللنا وعافية منك تلبسنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.